At Your End Step is brought to you by Comic Town and BCW Supplies. Hello, and welcome to At Your End Step. My name is Morgan, and I'm here with Dave.
Hello.
And Mike.
Hello.
And we have one heck of an episode for you.
One heck of an episode.
One heck of an episode.
I think this is new ground. We forged ahead. This is great.
Yeah, I mean, like, a lot of stuff happened since we last spoke. That's going to be completely all covered in our community segment this week, and then we still have some tournaments to cover in competitive. So, but there's so much to talk about this week. So let's just get started. So, there's a kind of a weird thing, kind of a bad thing that happened.
Kind of a flavorful thing.
Yeah. This past Friday, March 9th, a Chinese version of the Dominaria release notes were inadvertently published. And this quickly turned to people passing this list through Google Translate and trying to crack the translation on this, which means that a hefty amount, a very large amount of Dominaria cards were spoiled prematurely. Wizards actually released a statement about this that same evening, and they went ahead and actually put out the release notes in all available languages that they provide, including English, obviously. And there is a bit of a revision from Aaron Forsyth that came out this week on the 12th, saying that official Dominaria content will begin next Wednesday, March 21st. Initially, it was going to happen this week.
They were going to start it this past Monday.
Yeah.
They were just basically going to move everything up and just be like, well, cat's out of the bag, so we might as well start up. But they, I guess, thought about it over the weekend, decided, this week is the release of Masters 25, so they have a lot of Masters 25 content this week. So that makes sense to me. I mean, I think we can all wait a week to get some spicy Dominarias.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of the general idea of what happened with this sort of leak. Now, we're not going to go into in-depth about all the cards. That's too much. There's just too much to actually process. And
we also know that some of you may actively be avoiding that.
Yeah.
So we are going to talk mechanics. So if you don't want to hear about those, then you might want to drown out for 10 minutes or so.
Yes.
But
yeah, very much so.
About one card, right? That it was officially previewed.
The Homerid?
No. the new.
Oh, Homerids are bad guys.
The new card.
Yes, the very new card. So, a new mechanic that is going to be in Dominaria is Saga cards. And these are enchantments with a new subtype, right, of Saga. And they look very different. And they function a bit weird when you first see them. And there is a official, this was in the article that came out on the 12th. They actually showed off this card, so you can actually go look and see it. And I do encourage you to do so, so you kind of follow along with what we're going to be talking about with this card. But basically, they come into the battlefield, and then they have a bunch of text. The way the card is formatted,
Magic cards.
on the left side of the card, you have basically 3 chapters. This is kind of a good way to call it, of a saga, and then your normal art of a card. And is it your draw step?
It's after you draw.
After you draw.
Your draw step.
So after you draw,
or when it enters the battlefield.
Or when it enters the battlefield, you put a lore counter, and or is it a saga counter?
It's a lore counter.
It's a lore counter. Good. And it ticks up, and then once you have it on chapter 3, volume 3, whatever, you sacrifice it. And every time you go up a step, sort of like level up, kind of, sort of, it does something. But the example card that we have all the art for and everything like that, is Phyrexian Scriptures. It's 2 generic black for a enchantment saga. It is a mythic rare. And it says, as the saga enters the battlefield or after your draw step, put a lore counter on it, and then it says sacrifice after 3. Notably, it doesn't say enter the battlefield. It just says enters, which is something that our friend Brian Keller pointed out, and it's probably just due to
they didn't have enough space.
Yeah, it's a very, very compact. But the first volume is put a 1/1 counter on up to 1 target creature. That creature becomes an artifact in addition to its other types. Volume 2 is destroy all non-artifact creatures, and then Volume 3 is exile cards from all opponents' graveyards. So this is first of all very flavorful. At least like the first volume is like complete something. It was basically
something complete. No. Is that not how that works? Different complete, different spelling.
Yeah, exactly. And then destroying all non-artifact creatures makes sense for Phyrexians. And then exile all cards from opponents' graveyards. Makes them
kind of like clean them up.
Yeah, makes them real gone.
Get them out of here.
Makes them real gone. So, needless to say, this is a pretty cool card. It looks pretty wild, to be perfectly honest. And I've already seen, so Proxy Guy, if you don't follow him on Twitter, is a kind of a graphic artist for Magic cards. He don't make them pretty, and he did this in a landscape version instead of, is that right? Yeah, landscape. Mm-hmm. And don't look at it because it'll make you kind of sad that they aren't landscape.
I think it's okay they're not landscape because like Magic cards shouldn't be like landscape. Like the only time we've ever done that are what.
The split cards,
planes, yeah, those are awkward. Like the split cards are awkward. I hate it.
You know, like when you're drafting cube, right? And then somebody starts turning a card sideways, and you're like, oh yeah, I know what that is.
I guess like I told the guys last night, I'm pretty okay with this because like all the art from these is really good phone wallpaper for your smartphone, so I'm pretty okay with that.
Yeah, no, it's good. You're looking at that art. Do you see anything cool about it? Anything specific?
It's got a whole bunch of Phyrexian writing on it.
Yes,
it also has the Apocalypse set symbol, which is something I forget. I looked it up last night. It's the
the mask.
It's
right?
the mask of
Yawgmoth.
Is it Yawgmoth? It might be Yawgmoth. I have to go back and look now. This is on me. But
yeah, like I'm expecting like there to be a lot of little things like that in the set, which are just going to be like, remember that.
So and it's got that Phyrexian mana symbol in the back.
Oh yeah, yes, of course.
Well. Yeah, the watermark.
I want to say something weird about this. I was trying to look up, what they said about the Saga mechanic. Maybe I'm just misunderstanding something, but these aren't legendary.
They aren't legendary, correct?
But sagas do count as historic, which we're going to talk about, which checks for legendary.
Correct.
And I think that's interesting. So you can have multiple Phyrexian scriptures in play, telling the story of Phyrexia. So I guess in this case, if it's a book, if it's volumes, then I guess you could have multiple printings of the book, if that makes sense. But
the second edition.
It does seem odd that these aren't legendary. And depending on what some of these do, seems kind of terrifying, because some of these do work together if you have multiples at a time.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Also, things like Proliferate do work with these. And also, so does removing counters. If you remove a counter from it, when it goes to trigger again, it'll do the step that it knows it has counters for. So if maybe
it's like, you're reading a book and then you took a break and then you forgot what chapter you're on.
Yeah, you just go back. So like
or it could be like choose your own adventure. Like go to page 13.
Right,
you're gonna go back.
So like maybe you just want to destroy all non-artifact creatures again. Yeah, you do the time warp.
So we have the pirate that messes with counters on permanents, right?
Yes.
And then does Malphus, is that only creatures or is it just permanents? The Malphus Revolutionary?
Man, it might be permanents.
So we have a couple cards that actually manipulate the in standard that can actually do this theoretically.
Not to mention, fun cards like Giant Fan or whatever. Like if you're into that kind of stuff.
If you're
it's permanent.
Ooh.
For each kind of counter on target permanent or player, give that permanent or player and a counter of that kind.
That's kind of interesting.
So these can tick up.
Also means you can skip boxes that you may not like. Oh, I really like Lore 1 and Lore 3, but I really wasn't a big fan of Temple of Doom, so I'm going to skip that one when I watch.
It's target player on that one.
Oh man, that's
so you can manipulate.
The second one though was destroy all non-artifact creatures. So maybe you don't want to destroy all non-artifact.
Right. So it's like, okay, well, you got the big guy, but I don't want you to kill anything. You can exile my cards from my graveyard. That's okay. But yeah, this is a pretty interesting thing, and there's a bunch of them that I've already like seen, and they're really cool. And
I think the nice thing with them is like, so they may not be legendary, but you're never gonna miss that one of these is on the battlefield. You're never gonna confuse it with a forest, I guess is what I'm saying.
yeah.
What if they make one with like a forest watermark on it, though? Just like a tree?
Dryad's Quest.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a little bit of something I wanted to talk about because this card is very flavorful, and we have other mechanics to talk about, of course. But as someone, what I kind of wanted to say, something that's kind of been stewing in my head is like this entire set from what we've seen is very nostalgic. And this is coming off the tail, off of Iconic Masters, off of Masters 25, of being some things that are very nostalgic. But this is sort of a nostalgia that I can get behind as a newer player who has friends who have been in the game for a long time, or someone who is really into the lore. Because you don't have to have any history of playing the cards, but you just need to know like a little bit of the story. Like I knowing a little bit of the story about Dominaria and like the sets that came before and being interested in that makes me really excited to see like what these cards are going to look like when we get to see them. Because right now we just have text, but some of the sagas that we've seen, some of the creatures that we've seen, it's very exciting to like know that I get to go to a place that I've basically only heard of, and realistically I never played with the cards. Alternatively, I think that maybe not with Iconic Masters as much, but with Masters 25, I feel like a lot of the nostalgia for those sets is based on playing with those cards.
Okay, yeah. It's a different kind of nostalgia.
And not necessarily...
not a muscle memory for you.
Correct.
Yeah,
like, I don't have the history of playing with those cards. I have the history of knowing the Magic story through my friends. And, like, through things that I've investigated on my own. And I think that's why this sort of nostalgia gets to me a little bit more than Masters 25.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting concept. So I do wonder if, like, this will be something easier to, like, get with newer players. But I'm in a weird spot where like I'm invested in the game I'm invested in the game like more than just like it being a game, because I do like enjoy the older stories, and seeing callbacks to some of those older things I think is really cool, because it means that they haven't forgot. And I think that you don't necessarily get that consistently with a lot of games or a lot of long-standing story properties, IPs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like you get a little bit of both too, because like,
oh, for sure.
I know like I'm not really going to spoil anything too much here, but like there are some throwbacks to even like older cards. So like even cards that like we specifically mentioned as being left out of Masters 25. So like Llanowar Elves. Spoiler, Llanowar Elves is in the set.
Yeah. Like, we'll come back to standard.
We'll actually talk about, there's a relevant reason to talk about Llanowar Elves and coming up. But yeah, Llanowar Elves, like things like Icy Manipulator, Juggernaut, like these are cards that are like old school. Right. Even though they have been printed a bunch of times, like they're iconic in Masters, iconic in Magic history. Yeah. And I think people can like identify, like the original art on Juggernaut is like, like a pretty iconic piece. I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And Icy can be for different reasons too. So, so they did a little bit of that as well. And we still haven't seen everything, so there might be some other ones. But I thought that was pretty sweet too. So
I'm sure there will be some extra tidbits. I mean, Forsyth, I think even said himself that there's still plenty of surprises left for Dominaria. So. Yeah, that's a good thing.
I also can mention, because you mentioned the story, and I will say that is something that Dominaria definitely has going for it, is it being a lore-based story, and I do think that the Master sets not having a lore tie-in, you're not just like not having the cards, but not having like a storyline tie-in does make it hard to connect those players like yourself who doesn't have that, like isn't just the cards, and I think that's interesting. Now they did some like story like Vorthos pieces for what I think Modern Masters 2015 had a Vorthos piece, like, or it was a Prodigal Sorcerer or something like on Teleria, or at the Teleria West. But I do want to make mention of a couple things. One, I'm going to do a little little plug for another podcast. Morgan, I hope I get upset, but there's a new Magic podcast, and I don't listen to it. I know this is weird. I don't listen to a lot of other Magic podcasts. I think the Magic, the Amateuring is the only one I've ever mentioned really on here too much, besides like the Mana Pool, but that's because Chewie's awesome.
Right.
Which they just celebrated 500. I know it's a total
That's crazy.
but dear Lord, they had a big party and everything for it. That was great. But there's a Vorthos podcast that just started.
Nice.
There's a couple guys who've been they have their own blogs and did some other things, and they're super knowledgeable. And one thing I would suggest to you, Morgan, but others who are interested in this, they did a review of Masters 25, but with an eye towards like lore connections and what might be hinting at in Dominaria. And they did some really cool connecting of like art pieces and like some stuff that I thought like, oh, you're grasping at straws here. But then like today, even there was an article on WotC's website like talking about the art, little snippets that tell the artist what to draw, and some of the things that they were mentioning in M25 is like, oh, this is purposeful. They were there on the art descriptions, so it's like, okay, these guys know what they're talking about. And then today, what they started doing was they started talking about Dominaria connections specifically, and they also talked about like the Ice Age in an episode. There's only like 4 episodes, but this is me saying you, Morgan, might want to listen to it because it's really nice. But also, if you're interested, like they are gearing, like they've launched at a good time to gear themselves up for Dominaria.
Yeah, very much so.
But they also alerted me to something else. If you are interested in the lore stuff and these characters who are going to be here, because we're going to talk about this legendary theme and all these things, and I didn't even know this, but apparently a bunch of the old Magic books have fairly recently been put out as Kindle versions.
Oh,
some of the books that haven't been in print in literally 20 years, like the stuff for Ice Age and stuff like that. Characters who are coming back, you can go read it right now, which is I think actually pretty cool. So if you are really liking some of the lore stuff and you haven't had a chance to do it. And I know you, Morgan, and those listening really like that digital stuff. You know what I mean?
Really like them computers.
I hear you, millennials, like your internet things. But in all seriousness, you could really sort of catch yourself up to speed in a couple of cool ways. So
for sure,
check out the Vorthos podcast, but also go and check out some of the books because this is an exciting time for me for multiple reasons. Because like I love all these things coming together and the characters and I without giving the name of the card, I know a character like Joda is getting a card, and that's a character that's been around since Ice Age, so like that's just awesome. So it is cool to see some of the stuff kind of culminating. And if you're interested in that lore piece, and again, why you might like Dominaria more than the Master sets, then I think this is, if there's ever a time to delve deep, this is your chance.
Gotcha. It is kind of surprising that that Joda is getting a card, because like if you say his name with a soft Y, it sounds like Yoda. And like they're both like very strong, powerful wizards. So that basically live forever.
Yeah. So Joda's not a planeswalker.
No,
but he did get all this power. Ended up joining like a secret wizard school and becoming the head of it. Which Yoda was the head of the Jedi like school.
The mouse is gonna get him.
Oh no!
The mouse is gonna kick down their door.
And then he lived on here. He lived for at least. A couple thousand years, which Yoda didn't quite get to 1,000, but close.
He's a Force ghost, man. He's alive forever.
Here's the kicker, though. Jaya Ballard was his like apprentice, and she turned to the dark side because she was corrupted by a powerful influence, and he had to like fight against that and like clear her mind. Now he managed to do it successfully, so maybe he's better than Yoda. He'd have to go live in Dagobah.
That's how they spin it. They're like, it's like, Yoda,
better
Yoda. Are they literally vanilla icing this, or they're like, mine's blah 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 blah, and there's this. Well,
mine's Joda.
Joda. He wins in the end, and Yoda loses. So like, clearly very different.
No swamps for this guy. Nope, no sir. Well, okay, he might have a swamp in his casting cost, but that's not.
It's not. It's neither here nor there.
This is. I may have just brought a lawsuit down on WotC, and I'm really sorry.
Sorry, Wizards of the Coast. Our bad. So let's get back to mechanics. So another major theme that's going to be inside of Dominaria, which you could probably already guess with the tagline "Gather Legends," is legendary permanents. Not even just legendary permanents, though. Legendary sorceries. These are going to be sorceries that you can only cast if you control a legendary creature or planeswalker, if I'm not mistaken. And these are obviously very connected to legendary characters, and they're very powerful. And obviously, with that extra like hoop you have to jump through the cast, you'd expect that. And there are a few that we've seen so far. And this is something that I know, like Mark Rosewater talked about like a billion days ago or something like that on his blog. So it's not necessarily surprising to kind of see it show up. Anyone have like a good opinion about these?
Well, I do want to go back and mention, because I know, David, you said in here like major theme legendary permanent. It's not just a major theme. Maybe you said this, Morgan. I didn't hear it, but every single pack.
No, I didn't say that.
Every single pack will have a legendary in it.
Correct.
Whether it be creature or otherwise. So I know some people have been like Scooby doing it, like, hey, this Dominaria set symbol comes right off. It was Kamigawa the whole time. But it does seem like it's being done a little bit better way. Like when you hear like legendary sorceries, you might think of like, oh, like that sounds like epic. You know what I mean? Like, but it's not actually. It has a feel where like it is the kind of spell that only like flavorfully makes a lot of sense. Only a legend or like in this case a planeswalker who is now a legendary can cast this spell. And the ones that we've seen so far have actually referenced specific either legendary characters or planeswalkers, which I think is pretty cool. One of them I know, again, I'm not going to give away any mechanics or any of the cards I mean with it, but like one of them mentions Kamal, for example. And Kamal was very important during the Odyssey and the Onslaught blocks.
Yeah.
So you might recognize him as either a red or green creature, depending on which Kamal you remember.
Yeah, depending on which side of the bed he woke up on that day.
Yeah. I think it was more of like which side of my sister being either like not abducted or not. Like I realize I made that sound like he woke up on either side of Jessica, and he might have, but not in that way.
No.
They were very close. And then, she went and had to go be a Corona, and not like one of those delicious ones, but more like...
not like vacation.
Not like one you put a lime in.
More like the destroying a plane kind.
Yeah, that kind.
But, see, all the lore, you just gotta taste the flavor, man. I don't know.
It's true.
But I think it's like cool to see that like, okay, like somebody else would either have to be like as powerful as one of these beings or is really like channeling those beings.
Yeah.
So, and I think what's cool is this was already hinted to, and one of the things that other podcasts I mentioned you talked about was, and I know I was super excited about, was if you remember at the end of the so Dave's cat definitely just yelled at us. The end of the Shadows over Innistrad storyline, I remember I got really excited because Tamio had a bunch of scrolls, and one of them referenced the planar collapse of Sarah's realm, right? Like what the Urza had done back in literally Urza's Legacy, and like Emrakul like made her use it. If you remember correctly, that's how like Emrakul like sealed herself in the moon, and we still don't know why Emrakul was like, I need to take a little nap now. Bye, everybody. But I think it's pretty cool because in my mind, like that's the groundwork for like what is a legendary sorcery, like what is that like? And it's like, oh well, it's this planeswalker who can like cast a spell that Urza casts to collapse a plane. That feels suitably legendary to me to be okay to have that line of text on a spell. So I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Also, the legends are going to have new borders.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to see that yet.
No.
Yeah, we have not seen that.
So we'll probably have to wait till we see something come out next week. But yes, and I think a lot of people assume that with the elves versus inventors, and then not being able to see like Azuri, but it makes sense that they would have new borders. That's why you wouldn't be able to see it. And then we have historic, which is going to be something that refers to the legendary super type artifacts or sagas. So it'll be anytime you play a historic spell, draw a card, kind of, sort of, and anytime, and when you see that, that is what it's referencing. So,
yeah, I like how historic also just includes artifacts in general. Like going back to sort of like artifacts recently, especially with Kaladesh, has been like these really like nice, clean, shiny things that people have invented. But like in Magic history, like artifacts was like Thran weaponry that people just happened to find, and like. Or like Phyrexian machines that were spliced together. Like I think that's cool. That's just like, no, these things are old. On Dominaria, like the artifacts are ancient, and that's really cool. And
I think to a lot of people's excitement, Kicker is back.
3 Kickers strike back.
I know that Kicker is a pretty popular mechanic.
Yeah, like Kicker's like one of those mechanics that like they have redone before. They have redone in different ways.
Yeah, there's a lot of mechanics that are just Kicker.
Yeah.
Escalate was Kicker, essentially.
Yeah, what was the one? I mean, there's so many different ones that are essentially kicker.
Yeah.
Replicate, I think you could call it.
Replicate is
kind of like kicker.
Kind of kicker, yeah.
Yeah. It's just a way that, it really...
Overload kind of feels like kicker now that you mention it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, that type of mechanic is great, especially for limited, because it makes the cards...
They scale.
Yeah, they scale. Like, they're good at most points in the game. So, happy to see it. Like kicker is one of those mechanics that's like, they can bring it back as many times as they want. That, cycling... these are some of the best mechanics that they've ever done.
I think it's cool that when you look at something like kicker, like I like looking at cube design, for example, and like cards with kicker, I think have defied some like age, like even especially creatures with. I think of something like Kavu Titan, which still sits in a ton of cubes, and really that card is like nothing that special, but kicker makes it feel pretty sweet. You know what I mean? So, and we even saw things like weird kicker, like Desolation Angel just got that got a sweet masterpiece. And like that. So kicker's done some cool things, and I'm glad to see it back.
And with this new set, we're actually going to have some pretty hefty rule changes. So we have kind of new terms, or the leaving of terms. So like the phrase mana pool has been removed from card text. So an example of this is, of course, Llanowar Elves. It just says tap, add green, add a little tree.
Add tree, yeah.
Correct. So no add tree to your mana pool. But that's it just kind of, I guess, frees them up some space, which is pretty interesting. And they're going to be adopting they as the preferred third-person singular pronoun for a player, replacing he or she, which obviously is a move that's pretty smart for a game.
I think that like a lot of people, I've seen some people get really upset about this, and they've gotten hung up on like somehow like the politics of it. I want to tell you right off the bat, there's no politics in this. Yeah. This has been actually the preferred, like literally as of.
I was gonna say, I was actually surprised that they didn't change this like a long time ago.
Well, like the AP changed this either last year or 2 years ago, and if you don't know, the AP is the Associated Press, so like it dictates how journalism uses terms, so how your newspapers interpret these things, and in the last probably like 5 or 6 years, you've really seen a shift to this in because he or she has always been grammatically awful. Like you were actually supposed to just like assume like say he or she entirely, which like is a weird way to disconnect with your audience regardless of who the author is. So the he or she is clunky. Assuming he or she is frustrating to certain audiences, right? So they and there has been common, and you're starting to see it in, and I would say start to see it again. This is years past now in contract language, grammatically accurate language as far as journalism, and then what people are teaching in schools, and I can guarantee that's true. So if you are upset about this for a political reason, you're dumb. Like, I'm sorry, you just haven't been paying attention to our language that shifts generally. And if you say things like, hey, we can't just decide that words change, okay, tell me what a meme was a decade ago. Our language is living, and it changes all the time. So
if we can't dictate how language and words change, like, I don't know, like, who's Merriam-Webster then? Are they some...
Well, that's Dead Man. Or at least both of them. One at least one. One might be a leash, but
anyway,
a language leash.
Yeah,
it gets powerful every time they add new words. Feed me. But yeah, in all seriousness, I think like I guess I don't mean to be super abrasive or aggressive to you if you like are really against this, but if you're against it for like political reasons and you think that's why WotC's doing it, and you're saying something White Knights, something SJWs, you're very wrong. They could have made this change. Not without doing all the inclusive things they've done recently for whatever reason. Like this is, and like look at the cards like the sagas where they're desperate to save text. Yeah. Let's save all the text we can. Right. So yeah, don't be upset about this. This is the world now. This is your language. You'll be okay.
Right. We also have the Innistrad check lands coming back, so we will have the full 10 set of check lands. Which is good, because those actually genuinely need a reprint.
At least one of them did.
Yeah, at least one of them did.
I don't know if Isolated Chapel ever needs reprinted again. They could actually skip that one in this one.
Forever. Yeah, it never actually needs to get reprinted ever again. So that's good to see them revisiting those. But
did we skip over?
I was saving it for last, because it's the biggest rule change.
Yeah.
The biggest rule change is going to be involving how the Planeswalker redirection rule works, mainly the removal of the Planeswalker redirection rule. So basically, how it's going to work going forward is spells will specifically say what they can target from a list, basically. So it can target a creature, it can target a player, or it can target a planeswalker. Does that sound about right?
Yep.
And retroactively, this changes, obviously, a lot of cards in Magic. I think it's upwards of 700 cards in Magic will have errata to them.
So cards that can target anything, so like Lightning Bolt, for example, will just say any target.
Yeah.
So 3 damage to any target.
Right.
Which is actually, I think, going back to like the original.
Yeah,
like, isn't that what it originally was worded at?
Right.
Which, so I guess that's kind of flavorful in a way, in its own little way. But I don't know. I think this change is pretty. I don't know. I thought it was pretty intuitive. I don't think it's that confusing.
So I think there are some places where it gets a little strange.
Yeah,
there
are some
places
changes to
strange.
like how we currently do things, which we can talk about, like specifics.
So a good thing to call out is if the amount of damage you are doing to a player is determined by something they have, like non-basic lands or creatures, something like that, that can't target a planeswalker.
Right. And neither can each things anymore. So you can't like earthquake and kill their planeswalker. And this is important. I think that's the one that's probably the most important for standard, if I had to guess, because you have a card called Chandra Torch of Defiance, and Chandra's really good at killing planeswalkers. But it says 2 damage to that. It deals 2. I think I have to look at the wording, but like cards like that, unless I'm crazy, cards like that where it takes up and does the 2, and cards like Fevered Visions, Sulfuric Vortex, Mana Barbs, cards that used to kill planeswalkers, is my understanding they no longer do.
Right.
And that's super relevant because just in the last standard, I killed so many Gideons with Sulfuric or with Fevered Visions. I mean,
yeah.
And I think that's important. I'll check on the Chandra real quick because I want to make sure on that.
It's 2 damage to each opponent, I believe.
Is it each opponent? Because like something like it definitely can't anymore. So like no taking up your Chandra and killing opposing Chandras, which is a common line in standard.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Plus, each opponent. So you will not be able to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that is something that is going to, you say intuitive. I don't know how intuitive that's actually going to be at first when you've been able to do it for the entirety of Planeswalker's existence. I get what they're doing, but I'm interested to see what that does because I do think that actively changes standard design going forward fairly significantly. Because your planeswalkers have a higher chance of surviving a lot of effects that they currently don't survive.
I'm not saying it's like not a big change, but I'm saying like it's not. I don't know. Some people are kind of flipping out about it, like, oh, well, what does this do and what does this do? It's like I don't think it's that hard to understand.
Oh no! I mean, like I do. Again, I think that's unfair to say it's not that hard to understand. I think the fact that there's literally like an exception made for one card. Like if you look at the rules, it flat out says that like whatever the Vial Smasher, it's a commander card.
Yeah,
I can't remember the actual first name of it. Is like literally listed as a card that doesn't work the way the rule says it does, and it's listed specifically in the rules. That's not really a good place to be with your rules when you have to name a specific card that doesn't interact the way the rest of them do. And I think that like it's going to be confusing for some people at first to understand like the difference between like you can do this and like you mentioned like if it deals damage to the number of creatures you control, where it's like, well, that's not
right.
You know what I mean, that's not intuitive. Doesn't that just deal damage to a target? Well, not technically.
No,
so
that planeswalker doesn't control those creatures.
I think when you get into like a lot of like specific cases, the intuitive argument actually falls apart. So it'll be intuitive for you. It'll be intuitive, I think, for me. I hope it is. I'm technically a judge, and it should be, but it doesn't. I don't know.
I think that obviously the deeper you go back in formats, the harder it gets,
Absolutely.
and the hardest of it being Commander. so much love to all my judges. Judging side.
Commander side events.
Yes, side events. Yeah, commander side events. Excuse me, because you're probably going to get a lot of judge calls about how things do not work the way that the is being said. I think that it'll be okay for standard. Like standard will probably find like with Dominaria they're going to make this change. Then you have core set, and then you're going to rotate So you have what Ixalan, Dominaria. So you only have one set that doesn't like
in the core set.
Yeah, in the core set and the whatever the fall set's going to be. So you only have one block that's not going to like fall into this paradigm really. And you'd have to really look. I'd have to look at like what Ixalan cards like could be affected by this.
And I think that like what I mean by like it affecting standard, I think it just it has to change Planeswalker design a little bit. Like if you look at, I've had multiple times in standard in the last few years playing Chandra. Chandra being the main one I'm thinking of just because the way it currently interacts. But like where you and your opponent are both taking up a Chandra and shooting the Chandra to try and keep it relevant as you fight over the top, right? Well, now you can't do that. So now you have both Chandras racing towards the ultimate, and you lose a way to interact with it. And I think that's just they got to be careful with that. If depending on how the format shakes out, if before you would have put in effect like is it like a Fever Visions or whatever else that could interact with Planeswalkers in a different way than the rest of the format's doing, and now you've shut those off entirely, you have to be aware of what your Planeswalkers look like in a format. We see Vraska's Contempt being a $20 card currently because we have indestructible or hard to remove threats that are creatures, but also because we don't have that many things that actually interact with Planeswalkers that favorably. So I think they'll have to be more cognizant of that going forward, lest Planeswalkers get much better than they already are.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I could see some card like them making some changes and influencing some cards. And the nice thing about this though is now they can design like red spells that say deal X amount of damage to target creature or Planeswalker. You have that flexibility now. It doesn't have to go to face for it to be viable. And I think that is super relevant. I think it's super important when we talk about how, yes, I do agree that Planeswalkers will need to change a bit, but I think that answers will now be a little bit easier to design for because you can have that option where you didn't have that before.
That makes sense.
All I know is that Boros Charm can still do a 4 damage to a player or target Planeswalker. That's all I need to know. All right. So it still works the way that I want it to.
Generally, when you're casting, you're probably killing a player. Oh, let's be honest.
Hey, Jason's the format now. Sometimes you just got to kill a Jace.
That's true, I suppose.
Sometimes. Now you're probably still losing that game, but sometimes. But that is, I just think it's hilarious how many cards are going to have errata on them. Oh, man.
Well, we already have all of the Planeswalkers having errata.
Yeah.
All the Planeswalkers pre-Ixalan or whatever. Or pre-Rivals, I should say. Or was it just Ixalan? Which one was Legendary first?
Ixalan.
Ixalan? Yeah, so there's a lot of erratas recently.
For sure. I mean,
Plus we had the Fuse errata recently.
Yeah.
Man.
Things got to change.
That's good.
That's I don't mind them like not like shying away from changing things to make the game better.
Yeah.
So
let's continue.
Something else that's going on this week is Gamma, which is the game. I can't remember what the acronym stands for.
I do not.
It's a basically a convention for video game not video game, but like board card game like distributors and stuff like that, like industry folks. And there have been a couple of announcements to come out of that. Two of them being from WizKids, which is another popular game development house, coming out with a Magic the Gathering board game and miniature series. So Magic the Gathering Heroes of Dominaria board game will release August 2018, and Magic the Gathering Creature Forge Overwhelming Swarm will come out July 2018. So these are kind of nifty different ways that you can play Magic to a certain degree, and I don't know why WotC still continues to go down these roads, but I mean, WizKids is a reputable brand, so they're known for taking IPs and turning them into something that people still genuinely enjoy. So I have faith. I have faith in this. We'll see what happens. It may not be for me, but I hope that it finds a home for someone. Also, we did get a little bit more information about the Spellbook series that came out. So we have it. It's going to be the Planeswalker, whatever that's going to be, and it's going to be, I forget how many cards. It's like 7 or 8 cards total, and 7 of the cards are going to be the iconic spells, and one of the cards is going to be a foil version of one of the spell cards that you get. which is kind of interesting. So it's going to be random. You don't get the same one consistently.
Interesting.
So this is, I saw this tweeted out, and the first tweet behind it was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna buy this product if I have to buy it like X amount of times to get all the foils." And I'm like, "Oh, I mean, you can have that mentality about it, I guess, if you're the diehard collector." But this is sort of kind of a random element thrown into the spellbook series.
But it does have a Jace Planeswalker in it.
Yeah. It will have a Jace Planeswalker in it.
Yeah,
we knew that from the spellbook series.
I know, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, it should be Jace the Mind Sculptor, 100%. It's probably going to be Jace Bellerin, but it should be Jace the Mind Sculptor.
It's going to be a Living Guild Pack. We got to remember what he does.
If it's a Living Guild Pack, that'll be like...
It'll come with a collector set of white gloves.
But no one will buy that product if it's, if it's that Jace, so... but yeah, that was our hefty community segment. So before we go into competitive, I do want to give a shout out, of course, to our lovely sponsor, Comic Town. This weekend, they're going to have a Modern IQ on Sunday, which is the 18th. Oh, perfect. Thank you.
It's when everybody's gonna be nice and hungover from St. Patrick's.
Oh yeah, St. Patrick's Day. Oh man. So if you are in the mood to go play some sweet modern Magic after seeing some of the events that happened over this past weekend, definitely come out to Comic Town on the 18th and start to battle. So, and it should be player registration opens at 11 and the meeting at noon, I imagine. It's typically how they run their events these days. And it's going to be a lot of people. I want to forewarn you. These modern IQs get pretty full. So, but yeah. So let's talk about competitive. So Dave and Mike played in some not really local events. They played in some events one up north.
They were in Ohio.
Across the state.
So Dave, you played and traveled to Findlay with our friend of the show, Elliot, to a Modern IQ at Postword Gaming.
Yeah,
and you had Elliot won, so congrats to Elliot. I know that he enjoys when we say his name on the podcast. So congratulations, Elliot, for queuing for SCG Con for the Invitational.
He got more excited about it when I told him there was a Pauper Classic happening. So I was just like, you can play in the Invitational, and if you don't top 8, that's okay because then you can play in the Pauper Classic.
Yeah,
Sunday,
and get that value.
It's quite the weekend.
You had a different sort of day, unfortunately.
I did not have a good day. So
not just because of like Magic.
Yeah, like outside of Magic. So this is a first for me. So I've been playing for 20 years now, and this is the first time this has ever happened. I had to call a judge in the middle of my round 2 match so that I could go to the bathroom.
It'd be unwell.
Quickly.
It'd be unwell in the bathroom.
Yeah. It's not a good time.
Reverse.
Yeah. So leading up to that weekend, kind of had like a stomach bug thing kind of coming through my house. So my 1-year-old son had it on Wednesday, and then my daughter had it on Friday. And I thought it was in the clear. Was feeling fine the morning of, and then like we were almost to the tournament, and I started to feel a little not great. And I was like, oh no. Hopefully it was just the Taco Bell I had the night before. Nope, it wasn't that. So it was a pretty miserable time for me. And of course, driving with Elliot, I had to wait until he was done, and he made it all the way to the finals of the tournament.
Always the finals.
So I was just like, I went like 2 and 3, dropped out. I was just dead. I went out in the car at one point and just laid there for like an hour because I just couldn't move. It was bad. So
cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're recording in your house. Great. Perfect. Thank you.
No, it's all gone now. We disinfected everything.
All right. God bless.
Yeah. But I did play a sweet deck.
Yeah, you played Esper Mentor or just Esper?
I wouldn't call it Esper Mentor because it did have 2 Monastery Mentors in it.
Okay,
but the deck was
there.
definitely not like built around Monastery Mentor.
Sure.
It was just like a value card in it. But it was like Esper mid-range. So this is kind of a deck that it's been out there. It was kind of like my own brew to an extent. Like I just took decks that I had seen and kind of like mashed them together. Mm-hmm. So it was, delve creatures. So I played, Tasker, Garmanganglers, Lingering Souls, Lilianas, Jason Mind Sculptors, Thoughtseize and Inquisitions. And it was trying to take a more proactive approach to playing Jace, playing like a lot of discard and like, delve threats and then using Lingering Souls to kind of protect And it was pretty sweet. I think it still needs some work. I don't think the mana base is quite perfect yet on it, but it's something I'll probably continue to work on.
Cool.
But it was a lot of fun. There's nothing else. Not that I had that much fun.
Not that you had much fun.
I played it at F&M the night before, and I went 4-2, and it was pretty fun there.
Cool.
So, but yeah,
6-round modern F&M.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal.
That's so rough. All right. So, Mike, you played at Full Grip?
Full Grip Games.
Full Grip Games. And you played the 1K event on this past Sunday.
Yeah, I did not go very well. To be honest,
and I'm glad I didn't play Magic because it didn't seem like it was going to go well for any of us this weekend. I just avoided the whole thing.
I will say, nice store. I hadn't been there before. Also, it had we had 79 players, which store was not really prepared for, which was made for a tight squeeze. But like, this was not an IQ. This was associated with anything. The 1K payout only paid out the top 8, and then there was like, if you made top 32, you got a pack of Masters 25, right? Like, this was not like prized to be a giant event, and then 79 people showed up because it's modern in Ohio. So
yeah, I don't think I said there was 60 players. I think it was 60 or 62 up in Finley. So
yeah,
and I think they capped out.
They did 64 capped. I remember seeing the post for it because
there you go.
They could not seat anyone else.
Yeah, no, we've been in that store, Mike, and it's not big.
It's not big. It's a nice.
It's
store.
not. It's not. I'm not saying it's not nice, but like you're probably pretty stuffed in there.
Yeah,
it was very hot in there.
Oh, I bet you made you feel wonderful.
Yeah, it just made it that much better.
Yeah. I'm so sorry, Dave.
Imagine.
That sounds utterly miserable, and I'm very sorry that happened to you. I'm sorry that you have to have that memory. Oh man.
Anyway, Mike.
Anyways, so I played Marty Death Shadow, and I played only 2 rounds because I played game 3s all the way through. I played against an interesting take on Blue Moon round 1, and lost to some timely burn spells from my opponent because I'm playing Death Shadow. Game 2 was this crazy affair where he had a Keranos, because again Keranos is back in the format, and I had to I was able to set up a turn where I could resolve Hazarat through his Keranos and Jace the Mind Sculptor to finish him off. It was pretty sweet.
Nice.
Game 3 was I thought I was well ahead. I had a Liliana at 6. He had a Bolt in hand. I had Death Shadow in hand, and he bolted my Liliana, untapped, drew Bolt Liliana. I draw a land, attack, or I draw a land, play Death Shadow. He drew clicked me in combat. I had drawn a bolt that turn, so I'm at 2 low of life total to bolt myself because I'm at 10. So if I go to 7, then he just kills me in 2 attacks, and if it's Snapcaster, I just lose. So to bolt that, attack him, he untaps Snapcasters, bolts my Death Shadow, and then it was bad. I definitely got a little frustrated and misplayed a turn where I had an Inquisition, and he was able to opt into remanding Lingering Souls I drew, and I should have just Inquisition, but he ran 6 or 7 straight spells off the top, so it was a little rough. It was a good match though overall, and I played against humans, and we split the first 2 games, and then I got totally crushed by just a vile double Thalia's Lieutenant, double Mantis Rider draw. Game 2, we had a really close game, but he drew the second Thalia before I could start casting Lingering Souls, and I ended up dying with 2 Lingering Souls in hands and 3 lands in play, and that was not exciting. That was not great. Thalia's pretty tough, so. But I had fun. But I got to come home a little earlier. But it was sad. I played really close matches, and I very well could have punted the away game 3 in my own frustration. So
you got the real prize. You got Swenson's. So
I did get Swenson's, and it was wonderful. Yeah. So
good.
And it was got to see my family. It was nice.
Also a real prize.
Yeah.
I didn't eat anything.
I can't imagine that you would want to. Anyway,
so even when Mike loses, he wins. I got a double loss.
I could consume food. Get wrecked, Dave.
Delicious food at that.
So let's talk about some of the bigger tournaments that happened over the weekend. So we had first up GP Madrid, which was team constructed, and it was won by Christoph Green, Ben Jones, and Charles Elatambi. Yeah,
it looks good.
Elia Tomby. And you can check out the top 4 team deck lists if you would like. Was there anything kind of that stood out for you for this tournament? I didn't watch any of it at all whatsoever.
Yeah, unfortunately, neither did I, which I probably should have because I want to see how WotC does their coverage of this. But I did not either. I was pretty busy all weekend.
Yeah.
So.
I was either dying at a tournament or sleeping all day on Sunday.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I didn't really watch this. I did look at some of the deck lists. There wasn't. I didn't see anything too spicy, but I was really only looking at Modern.
Legacy seems to have had 2 prison decks, which is pretty crazy to me. Yeah, there are two red prison decks in the top 4 in Legacy.
Man,
I love so many cards in these lists because they're going to play Chandra Torch Defiance, Chandra Pyromaster, Goblin Ravelmaster, Pian Kiran Nalar,
solid classics.
Fiery Confluence. I would totally play that deck if I didn't have to get 4 City Traders to do it.
Yeah, that's always the pain point, right? You're like, oh, this deck's sweet. Oh no.
There was also a cool take on the colorless Eldrazi list in Legacy, and I don't know how consistent those lists are because we don't look at Legacy that often. But I was playing a couple Jittes, and man, when your deck's colorless, you're just like, oh well, this equipment's colorless. So now I just have this terrifying image of a tentacle monster holding Jitte. I'll gain 2 life.
Nice, blunt weapon designed to counter swords, but it's just I don't know, it's not really that threatening on top of a giant reality smasher, but okay.
I like the idea that you cast your Endbringer and they cast their own Endbringer and then they equip it with a Jitte and they're like, no, the real end. The real end is here.
Oh, good lord. Ooh, that sounds dirty.
If you want to see something spicy in the top 4, Carmine Danilo's
Falcone?
No. So this is Jund in Modern, which I haven't really seen too much spice out of Jund in Modern. It's basically they're all pretty much the same, but Glorybringer.
Oh,
2 Glorybringer in the main.
Wow,
that was definitely surprising.
Trying to go over the top. Can't Bloodbraid off into it, but
no, you can't. But that was pretty interesting.
That is really interesting, especially is that the 5-drop dragon that you want?
Probably.
It's interesting.
If you're expecting a bunch of Jund mirrors, it probably is.
Yeah, you can pop a creature and then kill their Liliana.
You can also pop Confidants, which is pretty important.
Yeah.
So if it was a bunch of Abzan, then I could see playing either Stormbreath or Thundermaw, both have either protection from white or killing all the tokens. But in the current meta where it's a bunch of Jund, yeah, I kind of do.
Yeah, it doesn't die to Fatal Push, doesn't get hit by Abrupt Decay, doesn't get hit by Bolt. It's actually that's pretty interesting. Positive. I don't know if it's good enough, but it's. Like you said, it's not the first one you would think of. I would think of what's the 5/5 haste that deals 1
Thunderball.
Yeah, that's the one I think that you would assume
gravitate towards.
That's seen play. Stormbreath's seen a fair amount of play recently, though mostly in the Ponza lists.
Yeah.
So it seems like those decks have gotten better. But
I'm so can we just move off of GB Madrid? Congratulations, obviously to the winners. Team events are still always weird to talk about because.
It's hard to know. Obviously, all the decks had to have done well at some point, but you really can get carried a little bit. But also, let's be honest, European Team GP, there's a lot of prison decks in the top 8. Stop doing that to yourselves.
Just let people play Magic. Stop being like Trinisphere.
Yeah, seriously.
House of the Void.
Trinisphere is $3 over here, but it's $50 a piece in Europe.
No, it's more expensive over here. Yeah.
I was being facetious.
So, Star City Games Dallas, Modern. It's so glorious. Congratulations to the winner, Andrew Wolbers, playing Red Green Ponza. Did it? It won.
Did you read what I put in the notes? I'll let Morgan read it.
For somehow doing the impossible by winning the tournament, apparently.
He climbed the highest mountain.
Now, you guys may not. This is a bit of an inside joke between us, but.
I think they know, because we definitely got at least one tweet asking for a special Dave's Deck Corner.
Okay.
About this.
Dave has notably said that Red Green Ponza is a deck that can't win a tournament, but people still play at F&M, and here we are.
That's why.
Not just F&M.
Everything. Yeah.
He's not counted any open top 8s either. He's no, I said I couldn't win, and then it got a really bad matchup too in the final.
2 bad matchups.
It got 2. It beat Infex. How does that deck beat Infect?
He's Stone Rained an Inkbot Nexus. How is that even possible?
You know why? Because he was like, Dominaire, I see you coming. Throw this back one to you. This is for you.
This is for you. For the back
with
row.
that Ice Age Stone Rain.
He was playing Kamigawa Stone Rains as well. So,
did he have a mix?
He might have.
I don't know. I wasn't actually.
It was either all Kamigawa or a mix, but
okay.
Yeah, I mean, this deck is wild. First of all, it's not playing Acid Mosses. It's playing Bloodbraid Elf instead, and not cutting like the other stuff that you would typically see cut to play
Acid Moss.
Still play Acid Moss and Bloodbraid Elf. But I think that makes sense because Acid Moss is still just a stone miss off of Bloodbraid Elf anyway, and I think that like Pia and Kira Nalar are still really good. He's still playing those main, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah.
I like that card did like some work for him with Tireless Tracker because those clues are artifacts.
Oh, chuck them.
You can
chuck them.
Yeah, I don't need to draw cards. Get a clue.
I was like the P and Kieran are just like windmilling their arms like boom, 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 boom. Hey bud, get a clue, and it just like blows up on him, and then Pia turns around and puts some sweet shades on, just like.
But this is a deck that I definitely enjoy. And I was pretty excited to see him take down the tournament. It's pretty cool. But let's talk a little bit more about some of the other.
He won on a mull of 5 in game 3 as well.
Yeah, against Storm. I'll be fair to you, Dave. The Storm players' game 3 hand was not necessarily very impressive.
That's why he lost.
That could be a factor in
also
losing.
Now Dylan Kirkpatrick. Why does the name sound familiar? Did he? I'm thinking of Donegan. That's the Dylan I'm thinking of. Never mind. But I mean, I'm sure he's had some okay finishes. But I do know that like his sideboarding choices were a little questionable, and I don't mean that like as a super dig on the guy, but like I know like he boarded I think in like Young Pyromancers and against the Ponza deck and just like tried
Pyromancer Ascension.
It was a Pyromancer Ascension, but like I don't know. It seemed like. I don't know if did he even like really need to board like against what that deck is doing.
I don't think you really need to board in really much because you just line up well against that. Now I don't know. I've only played Storm, a handful of times, so I'm no Storm expert or anything. But it seems like just the matchup just genuinely favors you.
In the top
like
8,
Blood Moon is not really effective against you.
Yeah, you have top 8. You have access to deck lists, right?
Yeah.
So. I mean, like if I look at the list, the things I'm worried about, of course, are Trinisphere coming out of Ponza. So like Echoing Truth and Wipe Away, as well as like By Force even might be some things that I'm looking to side in against this. But maybe he just felt that he needed to kind of attack the matchup at a different angle, perhaps. But. Yeah, it was kind of a mopey, a little bit of a mopey game 3 hand wise. The Storm player couldn't really pull off anything magnificent.
I don't want to get on too much. I mean, like making it to the finals of a
which a huge accomplishment.
I'm sure was a huge open as well.
Oh, probably.
And he defeated Caleb Shearer in the top 4 in the mirror.
Yeah, which is wild.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I don't mean again. So it's like I don't want to pile on like losing in the finals is tough and just like. If you do, then you make those you question those decisions. But not to make a bad joke, but it seemed like the perfect storm for Ponza.
Yeah, I mean, like that's kind of the even though like Ponza won, the real story to come out of Dallas is like Storm was big. Like it was the most represented deck in day 2.
It was the most deck that any deck could ever deck.
It was the most represented deck in day 2, having like I think six people convert, which is when you're only talking about such a wide variety of decks even being in day 2 in the first place, like that's a fairly high number, and you had 2 here in the top 8. And it kind of lines up with what people have seen how like the format's progressing. You have a lot of decks that just don't do anything. They don't interact with it.
Last week, I thought Storm was what I did not think that Storm would be the most played deck on day 2.
Yeah,
I thought that was a little bit surprised by that, but I did think it was well positioned, and I think it could have easily won the tournament. here.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, even with 2 in the top 8, I think like the point's made. That Storm is still around. It's still something that you need to be prepared for,
right?
Because you could just die on turn 3 still. Like the deck is still super powerful.
Yeah, I mean, and it's something that is a little bit matchup dependent. It is a little bit like people trying to like dodge it or not being like avoid having to have like sideboard hate dedicated to it. And it's also a deck that could potentially even be a little bit hard to have hate against. You can hate the graveyard, but they can still go off. And like the hate is too like the cards you would have for it are just very narrow.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think Storm is it's a deck that can be hated on in many different ways.
Yeah,
like you don't actually need like any real targeted things. Like you can board targeted things against it, like rule of law, things like that are just going to shut it down. But I mean, I think you can get by with having an aggressive game plan paired with like a little bit of spot removal, to hit their cost reducers, a little bit of graveyard hate to kind of keep them off balance, maybe a little bit of hand disruption thrown in. So, I mean, you can beat Storm without having, specific Storm, hate cards in your deck. And like the deck, it can fight through a lot of different things, but like if you are constantly hitting it from different angles and keeping them off balance, that is one way that you can beat them.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like you need to be proactive too. You can't I think like generally the control decks are not great against Storm because it will eventually Giga Jaws you out, or we've seen like the Pyromancer Ascension as like the new technology on the sideboard, which like if they ever get that online, then you're going to lose because it's just too much value.
We also have Jadine Clarence top 8ing with Junt, which is not at all surprising. I'm genuinely excited for her because she is so happy playing Bloodbraid Elf, and like you can't like deny true happiness. Like it's a wonderful thing. Like win or lose, like she was gonna have a good time playing Bloodbraid Elf this weekend, and that's great. Good on you, Jadine. I hope you do well in all your other tournaments.
Yeah, she had a great weekend. She did a deck tech on Jund. She had an article that came out on Star City today about just the thought that went into the card choices and the numbers that she had. So she really knows what she's talking about with this deck. And I think, if you've been paying attention or if you've been reading her articles, I think like is one of the best writers out there on any site. So I really enjoy reading her articles, even like her more just general strategy articles, not necessarily
about a specific deck. Yeah,
right.
But yeah. Definitely, and I think she just got moved over to Premium, if I'm not mistaken.
She did.
Yeah, that was fairly recent. Yep.
So yeah, definitely, a writer that's worth their weight in a premium subscription. Some might even say. So we also have Infect showing up now, piloted by John De Bruin, and as we alluded to, he did lose to Andrew. And in their semifinals match, and but Infect still kicking around. I know that Aaron Barish, also the notable aggressive aggro player, was also playing Infect. And this is kind of a deck that you might have forgotten about, but I can't. It blows my mind that like Jund, you would think getting this boost, and. would make it pretty hard to play. In fact, but apparently someone's making it. Someone's making it happen. But obviously, blossoming defense and all your other protection spells definitely help against the pinpoint removal that they have. Losing the Axiom Probe definitely made the deck kind of fall to the wayside a little bit, but. Maybe it's time for a comeback. I mean, I think it's pretty impressive they're playing 3 become immense. like
a bad translation. You ran it through Google Translate.
So I will say this. So how much worse is Bolt against Infect than Fatal Push? Is it like way worse?
It's probably
just like a little bit worse.
It's probably considerably worse,
right? Because you mentioned like they lost Probe, but like also Fatal Push being printed at the same time that Probe was.
Well, it was the 1-2 punch.
Like, that was really what knocked it out. But you see a lot of lists starting to play bolts over Fatal Pushes for fear of being locked down by Jace the Mind Sculptor. Bolt has some utility there. Being able to hit Planeswalkers is pretty important right now. So maybe the time is right for Infect to maybe not come back to tier 1, but to be a legitimate threat.
Yeah, taking more of a part in the conversation that is modern.
Right. That's like one of those like really subtle things, like really subtle shifts.
Yeah,
in the meta where like that allows Infect to kind of sneak in and be like, "Hey guys,"
like Blighted Agent just be like, "Yo, I'm back."
Yeah. So yeah, it is somewhat surprising to see it make it this far, and like when you would expect like a lot of Jund decks, but I mean, Infect can have some pretty scary draws.
Yeah,
even against the deck, packed full of removal, and
definitely. Sometimes they just get you. They can beat your removal spells that you have. So, and then we have blue-white control. So Jace Mind Sculptor still showing up here in the top 8, plotted by Garrick Alfred.
Yeah, he had a beautiful deck, by the way. It was all foil deck.
Yeah, it was very shiny, very 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 pretty.
I think his list is pretty interesting too. Like I think it's 2 Snapcasters in the main. Like
that's pretty stock.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, only with I don't know. There's been a number of lists now that have like going back and forth on how many Jace you should play, if it should be in the sideboard, if it should be in the main. Like, I think his numbers are pretty solid on everything. I like his build a lot. I wish to play this deck. I mean, I need to get Jaces either way, but I wish I didn't also need to get a Ruined Halo to play any version of Blue White.
If you want to play it, man, I got the whole deck. So.
I will probably be borrowing it from you one of these just because I just want to cast Jace.
I literally have the whole deck. So.
That's what I was asking.
I have most of the deck. But.
I want to check out his sideboard to see if he had Celestial Purge. He has one. Smart man right there.
Oh, that's a great card right now.
Oh, yeah, that's
I almost played 2 in my Esper sideboard, but
card you can tell that like Jund is a problem or something you're considering when you're like Celestial Purge in the sideboard. Yep, all right. Exiling things is just obviously very very good in Modern. So
Liliana can be a bit of a problem for this deck. So just having a nice way to hit Gormag Anglers, Death Shadows, or Lilianas.
Yeah,
is always
all the
nice. Or Blood Moons.
Options. Yeah, or Blood Moons.
Just it hits a lot of things that you really actually care about killing. So,
and then we have 2 Tron lists finishing out the top 8. We have Green Black Tron, piloted by Julian John, and then Eldrazi Tron, piloted by Colin Roundtree.
Now, so
Karin's still kicking around. Sometimes every time I guess with squiggly friends, but sometimes more than others.
Yeah. Speaking of squiggly friends, we gotta go down to 12th place list here. Blue Green Eldrazi played by Benjamin Dysart.
Yeah. He's doing
Elder Deep Fiend 4X.
Oh yeah.
I knew Mike would be excited about that one.
Love that card.
I guess like obviously doing something like this definitely makes your mana a little bit better than like ban Eldrazi. Allows you to play more Eldrazi's in general. The two varying degrees of success. But
I think missing out on I'm going to forget the name now. The Blink one, I can't remember its name.
Yeah, Eldrazi Displacer.
Yeah, I think missing out on Displacer is a little tough, but obviously, like this deck can just like end the game out of nowhere with Deep Fiend, which is sweet.
Yeah. I mean, for sure.
It also gets to play Sanctum of Ugin, which Bant Eldrazi never could do.
No.
Because it allows you to go and just chain your...
Yes.
Yeah, so that's pretty good. I like it a lot.
I mean, like, this is a cool thing that obviously we're seeing a lot more varying lists due to how the Magic Online deck lists are coming out. So you do get to see some weird stuff, and it's nice to see, like, for us to see weird stuff in an actual like paper setting as well. Yeah,
there are so many different Eldrazi decks now. It's insane. So we talk about Eldrazi Tron, which is still kicking around. We had the colorless Eldrazi.
Yeah,
that one. That was
Jonathan,
won the classic.
Yeah, and
Jonathan
Job was playing it.
We have Red Green Eldrazi, which is kind of like the new hotness, the 1GP a couple weeks ago.
Right. Blood Red Elf is Blood Red Elf.
Yeah, Blood Red Elf is good. We still have You still see Bounce Eldrazi now and then, kicking around.
I think that people are like just. I think that Reality Smasher is the reason. I think the Reality Smasher has just gotten a bit better in the format.
I mean, Eldrazi Temple's just a messed up card, man.
That is true as well. I will not deny you that. But I think that with like it just being able to like be a hasty threat against like a Jace or something like that, it can be pretty helpful. And I think that people are kind of pushing what the decks can do. I mean, something had to. Obviously, things have changed within the format to make Eldrazi just the teensiest bit better. And I think a lot of it, I think some of it at least has to do with like the improvement of Reality Smasher being a better card in the format.
Well, I think you had it right there. I think like people are pushing to see what else they can do.
Mm-hmm.
I think like having green for Ancient Stirrings makes a lot of sense
in
a lot of these decks, but like it's really not that necessary. It's just like a really good card. But yeah, people are just kind of pushing in all these different ways and see like what's best. And honestly, it's like you can't really go too wrong. When you have the ability to go like turn 2 Thought Knot Seer or whatever, like that alone is just going to win you a lot of games.
Yeah, doing that is like one of the most messed up parts about Eldrazi Temple. I will give you that.
Yeah.
We also had some. So we had Brendan DeCandio playing the 4-color Pyromancer list, the wacky list that we saw last week. That had the Grim Flayers for some odd reason. He is playing Bloodbraid Elves in this version, which is a little bit of a divergence than we saw last time. But he piled it to a top 16 finish, so it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Interesting.
He was doing quite well in the tournament, and he had a lot of like sweet games, as you would expect. Like, just look at the list, you're like, all right, yeah, that's sweet.
I know that he had a pretty good game against. I wish I could remember the player's name, but the player's known for playing Jeskai Control, and I can't.
Oh, Ben Nikolic.
Yeah, he had a stomping of Ben Nikolic on camera. It was brutal.
Volva Hazaret.
Yeah,
I think I saw that
to say the least. So yeah, it was pretty rough. We also had, speaking of Jeskai Control, we had Jim Davis, the other Team BCW, one of the other Team BCW members, playing Jeskai Control.
And I know that he and Jadine had like an interesting interaction. They said he's going to write about essentially where they both had missed something and would have caused her to win the game, and then he conceded, so they would go to a game 3. I think it's pretty interesting when you look at how the final standings shook out. So
yeah, for sure.
So good on him for that.
Basically, what it was she pumped up a Scavenging Ooze to be lethal, and there was some confusion. Like Jim wanted to respond to one of the triggers or something, so she like went backwards to like put the die back down, but didn't put it back up after. So the life totals were correct, but the die on the actual creature was wrong. And then like by the time they both realized it, like the game was already over, and Jim had won.
Gotcha.
And then he actually conceded the first game, even though he didn't need to do that. And this was like for the winning in the last round of Swiss. So pretty cool move by him. I mean, he didn't have to do that, but
I mean, it makes sense. Like if you're dead to it, then like
yeah.
And that's one of those awkward things too, because like you can't miss the counter if you gain the life.
Right. Yeah.
Like you can't. You have to like if you can miss. You could like miss all of it, I guess, but like you activate an ability if the full ability has to resolve. So
yeah,
it is awkward. But the game's already over, so you can't go back and like.
It was a little confusing, like watching it as it was happening, just because. And I even like went back and watched it again because like I saw stuff on social media talking about it. I was like, what? And then like I went back and like watched the replay of it, and it was a little because you don't have the audio, so like you can't hear what the players are saying. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean. Jadine like clearly activated the ooze 3 times. It was 3/3 to start the turn. She activated it 3 times, which would have made it a 6/6, and the Tarmogoyf would have been lethal. So, but yeah, he's gonna. Jadine wrote about it in her article today, and then he said he's gonna write about it as well. So
that's cool. Can we talk about the Sultai Tezzeret deck?
Yeah, so the Sultai Tezzeret, this is something that Zach Elsick was playing, but he did not day two, but Travis Brown did, and I don't know if they had the same list or shared list or anything like that. I know that I believe he did a deck tech for the Sultai Tezzeret list. Not Travis Brown, but Zach Elsick did, so you can take a look at his list and like kind of compare and contrast. But this is a kind of a, I don't know. It kind of is what it is. We're not. We see a lot of similar cards between this and like Lantern, but we're not playing that game. They have a lot of the same cards, but they aren't trying to do the same things at all whatsoever. This one is really trying to take advantage of Tezzeret Agent Bolus, like that. It's playing 4 of, like that's the a key card within the deck, but it's also playing the sort of the Meek Thopter Foundry combo, which is
that thing that's still a standard,
which is really good.
Wow, yeah,
modern.
Doing it again, Mike.
I don't know why I do that,
which obviously is pretty good with your Tezzeret, when you could just make a bunch of artifacts to do various things, and especially when it kills your opponent to the -5 or the -4, excuse me. I know that the list that Elsick was playing was also playing Crack Clan Ironworks as well, just to make a bunch of mana with your Thopter Foundry combo.
Yeah, that seems all right.
To do degenerate things.
Does that goes infinite, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Because you make 2 mana per Thopter,
yes,
which allows you to get 2 more activations and get you 4 mana. Ooh,
it's
yeah.
Infinite life.
Infinite life, yeah. Infinite life, infinite creatures.
Yeah.
All right, I like it. I can see it.
So it's interesting that kind of 2 different lists came out of 2 slightly different. And again, I don't know if they shared information or anything like that, but again, this is another one of those wild things that you can kind of do within Modern that makes sense. And I think that since we have like sort of the innovations that were happening with Lantern, people are like, well, those work for Lantern. What other artifact synergies can we put with Whir that kind of, does a powerful thing, but a different thing than what Lantern is doing? And I think that's cool. Like, and it's obviously it's playing Pentet Prism, so it's not doing anything that's fair, because that card doesn't show up in fair decks. In case you were wondering. So, but I think it's cool. I mean, it's another Ensnaring Bridge deck though. It's another Mox Opal deck though. So those if this becomes popular, you're gonna have pay an arm and a leg for those going forward.
I just want to say, Ceremonious Rejection. Very good right now. Between all these Eldrazi decks we're talking about, and all these
Magic card.
all these like artifacts that you need to get rid of. It's a nice card.
That is definitely true for sure. Anything else from the top 32 here?
I want to at least mention that Fairies did come in at 32nd place.
Nice.
So some Blue Black Fairies, just kind of a throwback list. I thought that was good on you, Fairies. You did it.
Fairies getting oh, never mind. I was say, well, you get Jace the Mind Sculptor, so you get Bitter Blossom and Jace. That's nice. Nice start.
Yeah, that's a nice start.
And for Liliana of the Veils, I do think like that card is, if it's not the best card in Modern right now, it's certainly up there.
It's very good. So, do you want to move into the Classic then?
Yes, for sure.
So the Modern Classic was won by Dredge, piloted by Robert Burmy. It's everything just doing it.
Yeah, they misspelled his name on Coldfish. It's Bernie.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. Did you say Pam? Pan? This is a movie joke. My apologies.
Yeah, I didn't get it.
You ever seen Step Brothers?
No.
Oh, you should. While I wouldn't normally tell you to go see any random Will Ferrell film. Step Brothers, very funny.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the better ones.
Yeah, they have a whole interview process where he just can't figure out the woman's name if it's Pam, and it's very clearly Pam, but he has no idea what she's saying. It's very good.
Gotcha.
So Robert Burney defeated Joseph Herrera playing Jund in the finals. We also have Josh Crow playing Burn. Another Blurred Gifts piloted by Kevin Downs. Blue Red Prison, piloted by Jody Keith, notable Lance player.
The notable Lance player. Weird that he played Prison. Wait, nope, not weird.
No,
at all.
not weird at all. No, Mono Greentron, piloted by Michael Smith. Humans by piloted by none other than Jonathan Rossum. And Jessica Control, piloted by Min Tran. Tram, excuse me. Is that one correct? Is it Tram or Tran?
As far as I know.
Okay. I can't trust you anymore, FTG Goldfish.
No, well, just because I know I've seen Robert Burney do well before.
Obviously.
He's a great player from that area, so I knew him. So I was just like, Burmese? I don't think that's right.
like the python,
Yeah, like
the Burmese python,
the tiger.
yeah. I do want to point out there have been some subtle changes to the humans list, and this is the same list that he's one of Rossum's teammates. They both Zan Sayed. He played a similar list in the Open.
Ooh, I think I know where you're going with this.
So, obviously, we're now seeing Pian Kirinalar over Keswick Malcontents in the main deck, along with 2 Thraben Inspectors, which, I mean, like, how does this deck lose now? It's playing Thraben Inspector. Again, we still have this energy with the clues, if that's the thing you really are interested in, but we're moving away from, like, the Keswick Malcontents, and I think we're cutting, like, a Thalia Guardian Thraben from the main deck.
Yes.
And we also have a little bit of a shift in the lands. We're playing 2 Reflecting Pool, which reads Reflecting Pool adds 1 mana of any color your lands could produce to your mana pool.
The land you control could produce.
Yeah. So with any of the 5 color lands,
it's just another 5 color land. 5, which is a pretty interesting change. And I'm very jealous because when you highlight Reflecting Pools, there's a Magic Online promo has very cool art on it that obviously is seen in paper, but it's Zendikar theme.
I'm seeing the conspiracy one.
Yeah,
so.
I'm very jealous of this art that is Magic Online exclusive. Dang, that's good art. You can't even deny that.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
I just want to point out a couple other innovations that we've seen with the humans list. So Aura Champion is a card that we've seen in sideboards.
Yeah. I lost a game to it this weekend. So.
Yeah,
pretty good Magic card.
So mostly because Jund really has no way to kill it. It doesn't block a Tarmogoyf for Scavenging Ooze very well, but
not at all.
It dodges all the removal out of Jund. Save a Liliana of the Veil, but even that's going to be tough to
all the other
whittle down all your creatures.
Yeah.
Then the other one here is Hostage Taker in the board, which it's not like surprising to see, but it's kind of taking the place of the Vithian Renegades, which is a card like that was like the artifact removal.
Yeah.
And Hostage Taker kind of does the same thing. It's still removing the artifact. In some cases you get to take it, but I think it's mostly just like an out to Ensnaring Bridge or something like that.
Yeah, very, very true. You also have Direfleet Daredevil showing up in the sideboard, which is, obviously the red pseudo Snapcaster. And this deck makes it Snapcaster because Aether Vial is really good. And that is another common thing. And then Gaddock Teague.
Yeah, Gaddock Teague. I see there's been kind of a run on Gaddock Teague recently.
Oh, yeah. Being a person that recently had to buy some Gaddock Teagues, yeah. There's been a bit of a run. It's all right. I got the judge promos for like nearly under everything else.
Nice.
The Gaddock Teague is a very expensive. Thanks, Boggles. Appreciate it. Pretty expensive Magic card these days. So real cool. But yeah, humans still doing human things. Still showing a little bit of shifts and changes within the.
There's 3 copies in the top 16 of this tournament.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I know that humans is definitely not. With the recent bannings, people said that it's taken a bit of a hit overall, but with modern, it's it's powerful enough, like it's still going to exist to some degree, of course. I want to take a look at this Esper Taxes list, piloted by Bennett Bartlett, which I think you're from the Marvel Universe because this is how they name all their superheroes with the same letters. But Bennett is he saw what Craig Wesco was doing with the blue white taxes list, and he saw what Eldrazi was taxes doing, and he's like, let's just make a goober, combine them both together.
Did you see who's on the loose in Dallas? The Wasteland Strangler.
The Wasteland Strangler. He's got a new ghost pal, by the way, of Spell Queller. You know what Spellcaller does? It exiles a card. They're a 1-2 combo.
Oh my gosh, the Spellcaller
he's like the lookout, you know.
the Spellcaller just like holds it in place, and then like it's like, what are you gonna do to me, man? It's not what I'm gonna do. It's what he's gonna do. The Strangler. Oh my gosh. There's Glenna Lendra in this list too.
Yeah.
Which, having played a bunch of Legacy Cube in the last week, I hate that card.
Cards feel good.
You either love it or hate it. Like you either enough to like first pick that card, or you lose to it every time.
Exactly.
I definitely had to definitely drew my upheaval against that card. Just like had to stare at my screen for a few minutes. Like, come on.
Yeah. So I played a match where like my opponent was just like chump blocking with it. I was like, yeah, chump block with that thing. I'll do this.
I think this deck is still full of criminals though, because we also have Hash's Taker. Oh man! So you're taking hostages, strangling
Somebody
people?
call the police.
Oh man, I really enjoy this deck just for the sheer fact that it has made me laugh so many times due to our stupid in jokes. So Bennett Bartlett, my hat's off to you. This is hilarious.
Now, as for the list itself, all over the place. It's all over the place.
It's all over the place.
There are a lot of 3-ofs going on in here.
But I mean, whatever. It's great.
It's really like 4 colors because it's got Thought-Knot Seer as well.
Yeah.
So it's like
It technically has red in the sideboard too. It's playing Fulminator Mage.
Fulminator Mage.
Can we also just remember that, like, staying on theme, don't forget that Thalia did time in the Slammer.
It's true for a small bit. Yeah, she was in that hell vault. And it changed her. She saw some things she'll never forget.
It's true.
It's very true. So, let's go. Let's go ahead. We can talk a little bit about the Standard Classic. It was won by Andrew Funkhauser playing Grixis Energy, and there's a lot of mono red in this top 8. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yikes.
5 mono red aggro decks top 8ing this, and we also had a mono black aggro, and then a Grixis Energy and a blue black mid range rounding out the top 8 here. We also have a blue red aggro, which I assume
it's mostly mono red, but it has
I don't understand
Siren Storm Chasers and Spell Pierces and very small amounts of them, and it has Essence Scatters and Negates in the sideboard.
Weird.
Don't forget about Captain Lannery.
Captain Lannery Storm, man.
You got to make treasures. You got to cast those blue spells somehow.
You got to say it like Owen Turnwald. Captain Lannery Storm.
I haven't heard that, but that sounds insane.
Yeah, I can hear him saying it in my brain, so awesome. Shout outs to Will Craddock playing Green-White Aggro. I do want to say that there was a standard PTQ over the weekend, which was also won by a very interesting Green-White Aggro list, playing a bunch of vehicles. It was like Green-White Cats and Cars. We had
honk honk.
It's playing the PTQ list was playing 4 Harvester, 3 of the Sky Sovereign, which is wild. And I might have to look into that. I'm a big fan of Green White Aggro currently. It's currently the standard deck that I wanna sleeve up. But Will here is playing 3 Huatli, which is a card that I just don't think I can actually like. I can't bring myself to play the Radiant Champion. I'm sorry.
Can't get behind that.
It might be like correct. I might be like strictly like wrong about it, but I can't do it, unfortunately. But everything else looks pretty stock when you're looking at your typical green white aggro list. But these lists are kind of catching on. There was another on the Spikes Reddit. There was a Korean PPTQ where someone won with a kind of a off the beaten path green white aggro list as well. So it's definitely a cool deck that I enjoy, and I'm glad people are still finding ways to win with it. So I have some interesting lists to build on for my next PPTQ adventure. But that's it for the Standard Classic, and I believe that's going to be it for competitive. So before we go into the wrap-up, I do want to give a shout-out to our lovely sponsor, BCW Supplies. You can check out some of the awesome things they have in stock by visiting their website, which is just bcwsupplies.com. or check them out on Facebook and do a quick search for BCW Supplies on there. Give them a like, and so you can keep abreast of their new product announcements. So, wrap up. Again, over the weekend, we do have the Modern IQ at Comic Town on Sunday, and there's going to be a GP in Phoenix. So you can definitely watch some sweet Modern coverage. No Open this weekend, and then Cincinnati is the week after that. So we'll touch on it then, and that's a team Open, but that's still a little bit off. But that's going to be it for this weekend. I know that locally we do have a standard PPTQ at VGMX, if I'm not mistaken. So if you're local and are still trying to queue for the RPTQ like I am, you'll probably be there on Saturday. But before we sign off on the show, of course, want to let you know we do have a few ways you can contact us if you have any questions or comments, concerns. We have a Twitter, which is YourEndStep, and when you add us, it's at YourEndStep. And then we also have an email address at YourEndStep@gmail.com, or Facebook. We can do a quick search for at YourEndStep, and we show right up. And you can give our page a like and send us a message. If you're downloading us and listening to the show via iTunes, do want to make sure you give us a rating or a review. It really helps with visibility and gets new listeners to the show. If you're downloading us from MTGcast, be sure to check out some of the other lovely shows they have on their network. We also want you to, again, take a look at our sponsors, both Comic Town Gaming Center and BCW Supplies on Facebook. Give their pages a like. But that's going to be everything. Oh, I almost forgot our Patreon. Of course, we have a Patreon. I just got in my own flow and decided to glance over it. But if you do want to contribute to our lovely show that we do here week in and week out, check out our Patreon. It's just patreon.com/@yourenstep. We definitely really appreciate anyone and every one of our patrons that donate to the show, every show. Your support really does help us out with things like hosting and getting new equipment and everything like that to make the show better. So everything that you guys do to help the show really counts, and we thank you. So now that's everything that we have for the show. We'll catch you next week, and you have a great one. Bye.